This video will cover the steps to complete the project for Chapter 9, Challenge Yourself 9.4. So the first thing we need to do is check to see that we have macros enabled. So if you're not familiar with macros, these are this is a way that you can automate frequently used tasks by creating the macro and running the macro. So basically it's a series of commands or instructions that you group together as a single command to accomplish a task automatically. So to save time on tasks you do often, you'll bundle these steps into a macro. So basically for this project, some of the formatting steps, so formatting that we'll use for the subheadings, we'll create a macro so that we don't have to go to each individual heading and make those formatting changes. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to get started is we want to go to the File tab and we want to click it, and then this kind of gives us a list of tools in this backstage view. So we want to click on Options, and then we want to navigate down to the Trust Center, and we want to go to Trust Center Settings. Here, when that window opens, we have options for macro settings. By default, mine is usually on this disable all macros with notification. For this project, I want to enable the macros so that we can create a macro and use it in the document. It does say it's not recommended, so you may want to switch it back after you finish this project. Okay, and click OK, and now we're ready to get started. And I'm just going to change my view real quick. I like to have the one-page view. Okay. So the first thing we need to do, and this is in step C, or step 3C, is we want to change this file from a Word document file to a Word macro enabled file. So I'm going to File, Save As, navigating to my location that I save my files, and I'm simply changing this. I'm removing my name and putting in my initials for the instructions. And on this Save As type, I'm changing that from a Word document to a Word macro enabled document. And then I'm just clicking Save. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to review the document from the beginning and make the following changes. Because this document was created by one person and then someone else is reviewing it, you know, in this instance, you know, you could suggest changes, or the other person could suggest changes, and you know, at some point then you finalize whatever changes you decide to have in the document. So we're going to do this for this project. So we want to go to the Review tab, and you can see that this document has changes in it by these red lines in the left margin. So these are different suggestions that the reviewer has made. So as the reviewee, we will determine if we want to accept those changes or not. So we want to be in this changes group. And I'm just going to click on the next button because I can see that there's changes, and I just want to start scrolling through those changes. So the first thing the first recommended change is to insert the word absolutely, and we want to reject that change. We decided we do not want that in there. And then the next change is language arts, and we're also going to reject that change. We want to accept the deletion of observation, so we can see that, you know, whoever reviewed this wanted to get rid of this word, and we agree that we should probably get rid of that word, so we're going to accept that change. And then we want to accept the insertion of implementation, so this means that we're adding this word, so we want to accept that. And then it says we want to accept all of the remaining track changes, so we could continue to just go through and click accept, or if we click on the drop down, we can accept all changes. So we can just go ahead and accept all. Okay, but now we want to add one comment. So when we send this back to whomever, we want them to kind of see that we did have one question. So we'll scroll down to technique, and we'll just select that word, highlight it. And we want to insert comments. So we're still on the review tab and we're in the comments group now. So we're adding a comment. And we're just going to ask, can this section be deleted? And question mark. All right, now we want to change the display of the document to show no markup. So right now, any markups that we have in here, we have them visible in the tracking group, all markup. We want to click on that drop down menu and we just want to change it to no markup. We don't want to see the changes now. We just want to do some of the editing, like formatting. So we want to go ahead and save the document, and I'm just going to click on the save button in the quick access toolbar. And now we want to record the macro. So to do that, we want to go to the view tab, and then we have the macros little group here. But before we get started, we want to select the text that we're going to use for the macro. So that's observation phase heading. So the first thing we want to do is open them, or we want to click on record macro, and we want to name our macro phase formatting. And then we want to store the macro in the current document. So we don't want this to be available in every document we create from, today forward. So we want to click on this drop down list, and we should see the document that we're actually working on. So I'm going to select that. So this macro will only be available in this document. And then we want to type in the description, formatting for phase headings. And this description is kind of helpful particularly if you're creating a lot of macros. You may have forgotten what the macro actually is for, so this will kind of be like a little reminder. And then the last thing we want to do before we start recording the macros, we want to give it a keyboard shortcut. So we want to click on keyboard, and now we actually have to assign that shortcut. So it wants us to use the Alt, Control, Shift, and P key. So we want to press those all together. So when you press 1, make sure you continue to hold it until you have all 4 buttons pressed. And so we want to assign that to the macro, and now we can close this window. And we're ready to start recording. So we want to come back up here to macro. I'm sorry, we are ready to record. We do not need to press record. So, and you can tell that you're ready to record because of the little cassette tape that's, that's connected to your mouse. So the first thing we want to do is change the font to Verdana. So I'm going to the Home tab, and in the font group, I am just clicking on the options, and I'm going to start typing in Verdana, and that's the one I want to select. And then the font size, I want to change that to 24. And then it also wants us to apply bold and italic formatting. And now that's all the formatting we want to do to this heading. So now we can go back to view, to our macro, and we can stop recording. Okay, so now that we've recorded this, we think, oh, maybe we want to change something on it, that doesn't look exactly what, how we had in mind. So we can actually edit that macro instead of recording it over. So we want to go to view macros, and so we just have the one macro, so that's the one we want to select, and we want to click edit. Now this kind of takes you into the back side, so it's almost like you're doing a little bit of programming maybe, but what we want to do is just modify it just a little bit. So the first thing it wants us to do is it wants us to change that font size. Remember, we chose 24. We actually want to change that to 16. And then we want to delete the bold. So we did bold and italic. So I'm just going to select the line that has bold. And we can leave this blank line here, or we can go ahead and move the next line back up. And so that's all we're doing, so we can just close out of here. So I'm going to close the macro code window and then the Visual Basic window. Okay, now the first thing, now that we've finished editing our macro, it wants us to clear the formatting from this observation phase. So you should still have it selected. So I'm going to my Home tab, and in this font group, the A with the little pink looking crayon on it, that clears formatting. So that just takes it back to just plain text. And now we want to try out this macro that we created. So we want to try it out on the observation phase heading and the implementation phase heading. So remember, we used a keyboard shortcut, so let's try it first. So go ahead and press Alt, Control, Shift, and P, and notice that that formatting changed. And then for the next one, implementation phase, so I'm going to select it. I'll do it the other way. So we can go to View, we can go to our macro, and we can click on View Macro, and we can click Run. So a few more clicking steps to use the macro, like run the macro. The keyboard shortcut, if you can remember them, is probably the quickest way to run your macros. Okay, so now it wants us to export the document as a PDF with your file name. So we probably need to go ahead and save it first. So I'm going to save, and now I'm going to File, and in the Backstage view we have these different tools here, and it has the option for export. And we want to export it as a PDF file. So we can click on Create, depending on which program you're using. I have the option to create a Adobe PDF, so I'm going to click Adobe PDF. And then we get this window that pops up, and the file type, we have the file name already, so we don't need to really change that. But the Save As file type should read PDF, and then we just click Save. Mine is a little slow. It takes a few minutes to create the PDF for some reason. Oh, it was a little quicker. And then it should open, and then you just kind of have a quick view of that PDF. Mine opened and minimized at the same time. So here it is. Now we're not actually doing anything with the PDF, but you should be familiar with how to export or convert to a PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then the last few steps for this project, we want to run the document inspector, checking all content. So again, we're going to the File tab, to that Backstage view, and we want to choose, in the Info group, we want to choose Check for Issues. And the first thing we want to do is inspect our document. And this kind of runs through a list of things that it will check for when it inspects. And if there's something you do not want it to check for in this list, you can simply uncheck it. But we're just going to go ahead and check for everything. And we want to just click Inspect. And it might take it a couple seconds, but then when it's finished, then it gives you a list. Anything that has an exclamation point by it might be something you want to check or change. Our instructions tells us that we need to remove all document properties and personal information. So in this second group here, this is the document properties and personal information. We just want to click Remove All. And so that's all we're doing with this. So there's no point in we could re-inspect, but we really do not need to. So I'm just simply closing this window. Okay, so now it wants us to check compatibility with Word 2010. So I'm clicking on Check for Issues, and I want to click on Check for Compatibility. Now when we get this pop-up, it shows us all the versions that it's checking for, and we definitely have Word 2010 selected, so we're good there. So we just want to click OK. Now we want to go back to File, and we want to save this macro-enabled document as a Word document now. So we want to go to Save As. We want to navigate to our location where we save our files. And so we have the name of the file on here already, but we want to change that file type to Word document. And then we would just want to click Open, Save. My computer's thinking about it for a moment. And so then you'll probably get a pop-up that the following cannot be saved in a macro-free document, and it's telling us that macro. So, but yes, we want to continue saving it. Okay, So now we want to mark the document as final. So we want to go to the File tab again, and we want to, on this time we want to protect the document, and we want to choose Mark as Final. And this document will be marked as final and then saved. So we want to click OK. This document has been marked as final. OK again. And then we can just go out of this backstage view. And you should have the little banner across the top that says it's marked as final. And you want to make sure that you've accepted changes and turned off the track changes. So we could just quickly go to this review tab, and we just want to change that from simple markup to no markup. And all right, after you mark it as final, you want to make sure that you go to File, and you just want to save as again, just to make sure you've saved all of the changes and that you've saved it where that you marked it as final. So you want to click Save, and then you should be ready to submit your final project. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I will have a video ready for next week. Hopefully we start Excel.